There's also this bully named Roger who constantly tries to make Doug's life a living. Why? Because all kids with leather jackets are just bullies now. Didn't you know that? It's like an official law. He also travels around with his pet cat named Stinky, who probably lives up to his namesake. This show is so unrealistic. I mean, what kind of boy would travel around with a cat, wear leather, cover his hair in gel, obsess over his looks, and constantly go after a submissive boy roughly his age? Oh. I think the best way to describe this show is that it's kind of like the early episode of The Simpsons. They're not funny, not well animated, and surround you in a world of awkward uncomfortableness. But whereas The Simpsons got funny, Doug just psychologically tortured me for life. I mean, psychologically tortured anyone named Doug for life. Nacho! Rocco's Modern Life. This show is kind of like Ren and Stimpy, except maybe a little bit more reserved and not quite as controversial. But it did capture a lot of the zaniness, as the show's main character was a tiny kangaroo with an Australian accent, who, for some reason, has a gigantic hole in his face. Must have been the battle of the boomerangs, koala bears, and wallabies. You know, the Great War of the Australian stereotypes. Where the dingoes flew high into the night, attacking the armies of shrimp on the Barbie, while the ancient league of fosters bombed all the alligator hunters, leaving nothing but the kangaroos and eucalyptus leaves to brave the darkness. Or so I've heard. Rocco also has a cast of interesting characters, most notably a cow named Heifer, who's kind of like a version of the starfish from SpongeBob, Filbert Turtle, who looks like Woody Allen and is just as slimy, and of course, the Big Heads, who I swear are just the Grinch's as they sprouted legs and started complaining about everything.
Oh, Ed, this mountain cabin sounds so romantic.
You know, I used to be a man, but I thought my voice was too feminine, so I changed.
Good night, everybody.
Rocco himself is a pretty normal and innocent character, but the adventures he embarks on certainly are not. For example, there's one episode where Filbert is looking to practice dentistry on his friend, so he takes him to the Academy of Dentists where he performs in front of a stadium of people, but that's not the weird part. He is then taught by a teacher who is a cat with a hook for a hand, but that's not the strange part. One of Rocco's teeth breaks loose, grows 7 stories high, and starts attacking the city by destroying all the buildings while Filbert tries to dress up like the Tooth Fairy to stop him. But that's not the strange part, no. The strange part is this.
Hey kids, my name is Gordon. Let's talk about good oral hygiene. Rocco went to see a professional dentist, and now his teeth are in perfect condition. You bet they are.
So for as weird as many of these jokes get, sometimes they hit a little too close in familiarity. Like, tell me if this bit sounds familiar at all.
I never really wanted to be a dentist anyway. I always wanted to be a chimney sweep.
I didn't want to be a barber anyway. I wanted to be a lumberjack.
Leaping from roof to roof of the Old Town high-rises.
Leaping from tree to tree as they float down the mighty rivers of British Columbia.
And I'd sing.
We'd sing.
I mean, there's paying homage and then there's just plain ripping off. And I mean it. These rip-offs of great comedians have to stop. Alright, enough is enough. This is the final. This is the very, very last straw. Well, at least we get some originality from the next show that popped up. Real Monsters. Now, I have to admit, I was just starting to get out of the Nickelodeon phase when the show came out, so I didn't watch much of it. But when I did, it was a pretty cool show. All the monsters look creative and have really funny and enjoyable personalities. The story was about an academy of monsters whose job was to go out into the world, scare the daylights out of people, and return back with their report of their progress. Gee, wouldn't it be horrible if some other successful studio pawned that off as their idea? So in the lineup, you had Ickis, who kind of looked like the Noid from the Domino's commercials. Crumb, who looks like how most people look after laser eye surgery. Just keeping it real, people. And Oblina, who kind of looks like Beetlejuice's if you had one. I guess she's supposed to have some sort of accent, but God help me if I can tell you which one.
They've got to do something. If humans are not afraid of him, they could lose their fear of all monsters.
It's like somebody said, this character has an accent. Oh, okay, what kind? Just an accent. They all have to work for their intimidating boss known as the Grumble, who I swear is the cartoon version of Tim Curry from Rocky Horror Picture Show.
I'm just a sweet transvestite.
The show was good, but I always had the feeling that some of these jokes had a double meaning. Like, listen to some of these lines and tell me if they sound decent to you.
Have you forgotten why you're here? Our mothers and fathers loved each other very much, so they...
They what? They what?
If you see a monster, just say, Coochie Coochie Coo!
Alright, nobody's going Coochie Coo around my monster.
Aren't you supposed to use 2 fingers?
Next cartoon. Alright, this is the last show I'm going to talk about because this is when I officially stopped watching Nickelodeon. I actually never saw a single episode of this show, but I know a lot of people did, so I decided to take a look at it. From what I can gather, it's a show pretty much just about a kid in the Bronx. And that's it. It's pretty much just about a kid in the Bronx. Adventure! It's a tough time where kids walk like they're a production of West Side Story. Girls repeatedly shout the word Arnold for some strange reason.
Arnold! Arnold! Arnold!
And an army of boys against an army of girls ultimately results in the boys very politely stepping out of their way. I'm hyped! There's a boy named Arnold who is blessed without the pressures of having a personality. His best friend Gerald, the one black person that every white person claims to know. And then there's Helga, who's so tough that she actually names her fists.
They're gonna have to answer to old Betsy.
That's not so tough. I named my fist too. This is Glenda and Pancake. No, it doesn't seem very threatening, but when you look at the, Shut up! And they had to deal with tough, nail-biting city drama that everybody in the Bronx has to deal with. Like,
we're stuck downtown, I'm a strawberry, and we don't have any money!
Again? Even though Helga constantly makes fun of Arnold, she secretly has a crush on him that quite literally drives her to madness.
Oh, my poor lost sweetheart. How I love you. And yet I hate you. And yet I love you. And yet I hate you. And yet I love you.
We love Arnold. We love him so much. No, we hate Arnold. We hate him so much. Love, hate, love, hate.
Also, maybe it's because I don't watch the show, but why does Arnold wear a plaid skirt? I mean, is it a kilt? Is it a jacket? Is he just an open transvestite? I mean, Brooklyn, that wouldn't surprise me, but come on, how about a little clarification? Oh well, for whatever reason, I guess the show didn't seem that bad from what I saw. But sadly, I've reached my peak by this point. I had grown older and Nickelodeon cartoons no longer seemed to entertain me. It's strange to think that for all the loud and bizarre shows I remember, Nickelodeon actually had a lot of quiet and subtle shows as well. It was like the mood swings of children's programming. But we loved it, every last bit of it. Nicktoons were different, surreal, and one of a kind, making it a very memorable part of our childhoods. And trust me when I say I'm not really as bitter about the whole Doug show as I let on. I mean, it didn't leave nearly as bad a mark as you may think. Oh, the singing. It's coming back! It's coming back! Make it stop! Make it stop! Oh, all I had to do was ask. I'm the nostalgia craze. I remember...